Hello and welcome to Trans AM. I'm Sarah Johnson, Executive Director of the Metro Trans Umbrella Group, and I am super excited here today to get into Pride Month and talk about all things Pride 50 years after Stonewall. We have a couple little housekeeping things. Speaking of Pride, the Metro Trans Umbrella Group will be tabling at all the major Prides this month. Come out and see us. We're going to be at Tower Grove. We're going to be at Pride St. Louis. We're going to be at St. Charles Pride. And we're going to also be over with our friends in Southern Illinois at the Mepsi Pride. So come on out and see us. Another special event that we're having this Pride season is a QT POC Kiki at Blank Space on June 29th. So come on out and support our QT POC siblings and let's have a Kiki. I have some special guests with me today talking about all things Pride. Would you all like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Do you want to go first? I guess age before beauty. So, hi, my name is Jorden Braxton, and I am the Director of Diversity and Inclusion and Volunteers for Pride St. Louis. I'm also a support group facilitator for MTUG, and I just am the mother of the gay community, I guess. I don't know. So I'm happy to be here today, and I can't wait to delve into everything's Pride, because you know June is my month.
Hi, I'm Amy Jade. I'm just a fun little trans activist here in the city of St. Louis. I'm loud and I'm obnoxious, and we're going to have a fun time.
So we are 50 years in to when one of our siblings threw a big old brick through the window at Stonewall Inn. And what a difference 50 years makes, y'all, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, Pride is like a lot, right? I feel like it's definitely both and I'm excited to hear how you all feel about Pride celebrations, and certainly through your own lens as experiencing multiple Pride celebrations through your lifetime, and then looking at it through a community lens. So I want to talk to you first.
Okay. Well, I'd like to preface this by saying I sent on Interpride, and Interpride is the global organization for all prides.
Okay.
So this past month in Havana, their 12th annual Pride Parade, or the Conga as it's called, was canceled by authorities because of very obscure, vague reasons. So as we approach this Pride Month, I ask everyone, let's put our differences aside and be grateful that we get to celebrate Pride and who we are. Yes, some say we should celebrate one way, some say we should celebrate another way, but my thing is, let's just celebrate, because we get a chance to freely and openly express who we are. And I know there's 16 different prides in our region. I just want everybody to go to a pride, pick one that's for you, go celebrate and have a wonderful time, because it's all about family. So that's, I just want to preface that, but it's 50 years. We've come a long way from throwing a brick to now having what we have today. Because some can look at it as Pride as a business, and some can look at Pride as an event. So it just depends on how you look at each of those is how you feel about Pride. And I understand both sides. Being a person who has been in the streets fighting for trans rights and intersex rights, and actually been in the street fighting for all rights, it just depends on how you feel. And no matter what pride you celebrate, or which pride you think is right, or which you think you pride is wrong, again, it's just about celebrating who you are, and you have to go to that one that makes you feel most comfortable. Hopefully, of course, I hope you come to Pride St. Louis, because that's my job. So let's delve into, look at me, I'm trying to be the moderator.
Right, yeah, I knew this would happen. So I'm open to this. I'm open.
I'm running the show now. So my thing is, let's just address the elephant in the room. And I know people are upset because Pride has corporations, because that's gone a long way. Everyone remembers that Stonewall was a riot. Yes. And it seemed like we've come a long way from that concept of fighting the establishment, and I'm just going to say it, for the status quo and the establishment, to where we are now, where it's a big celebration and event that lets corporations in. And I know a lot of nonprofits feel like they get shunned out because of the expensiveness of Pride. So if you look at Pride as a business, that's the aspect of how that all comes together. How do we go from a riot to a corporation? Right? That's basically what it is. Yeah. And I know people in our community have some strong feelings about that. But my feeling is, I will take your corporate money Because let's face it, we all work for nonprofits and we all have things that we're powerful for. In our community, we're a broke community and we don't have the necessary means to fund the things we need. Our community is very needy. We have a lot of things that we need, and we as individuals and as humans don't have the necessary funds to get those. So we have to go outside, and to write grants, that takes a lot. And a lot of times we lose grants to bigger organizations because our budgets can't support that. So where do we go look for that? We go to corporations. Yes, I'll take your money to help my community, but you don't necessarily have to put your name on everything. And those corporate dollars. And I know there's corporations out there we get money from, like Boeing and Monsanto, as we earlier said, are the killers and the
Poisoners.
and the poisoners. Yeah. Yes. But I look at that as, I'll take your money and spend it on people in our marginalized community that need it. Don't put your name on it. But just give me your money, because that's what you feel like your philanthropist should go for. So I'm just saying, everybody's quiet. I'm like,
Oh, sorry. I was
just jump in, Amy. Come
totally.
on.
So as like a younger person who has like a lot less history within the movement and the community, but has like been kind of inundated with like the activist side of queer life before a lot of the other sides of it. The first few prides that I've gone to have been one of the most disillusioning moments of my life. I have struggled a lot with downtown pride and being able to just like enjoy it. Not being a big drinker, not being a big partier in that kind of regard. Oftentimes feeling like I was not incredibly welcomed in a lot of the spaces, and feeling like I was walking past people who just wanted me to buy their flags and their signs. Downtown Pride had kind of been a very disillusioning process for me personally. That isn't to knock like the organizing that goes on for it or anything like that. It's just this is what I felt, and to be honest with my feelings, I think is always important in that kind of a regard. Other prides, I have been able to feel like a little bit more part of community, where it felt like I was walking around and seeing familiar faces, or I was seeing people that I had seen active within these communities. But still, I think that we like often let a lot of politicians get a free pass to get their representation in our pride celebrations and whatnot. For example, a couple years back when Hillary Clinton had like a little march going through, like to me, it felt very uncomfortable knowing her history with DOMA and knowing that she only switched her political stance on gay marriage and all other things like that within the last few years. And I understand maybe she personally has a little bit more of like a supportive understanding of the gay community, but the thing is she almost always took whatever was the most politically expedient route. And I don't think that that's something that we should celebrate in our communities, is politically expedient and politically safe like gestures of support. And I think that a lot of times that our pride celebrations become that. And I think a lot of the corporate sponsorships of our celebrations often become that kind of like politically safe show of support that they end up profiting off of goodwill later on. And that's one reason why I often would like to see a lot more prides that are a lot more community centric, and the entertainers being people from the areas, and the sponsors, or at least like the businesses that are represented being local businesses. I'm a little bit of an idealist in that kind of a way, but I think that if we sell out idealism for whatever is more viable, I think that is not something that is smart for our community going forward. And I think that selling out idealism kind of sells out a bit of the spirit of what Pride started off as. Especially when I see performers and whatnot congratulating like our military or our police on stage when originally Pride was fighting back against police shakedowns of gay bars. And I think that we all know the history in St. Louis specifically of how our police system has targeted our communities and continues to this day to do that, and just the ways that our gay bars have almost become fortified against those kind of raids. The glass block windows and the no windows on the outside, those are intentional kind of things. And I don't know if a lot of younger people in our communities know that. A lot of the people who I interact with, who their gay history and their gay culture comes directly from what is it, like the E network or whatever the fuck?
Right. It comes from, I tell kids all the time, we were gay before Gaga.
Exactly. Like Born This Way wasn't the brick that threw at Stonewall.
Yes.
But and that's an issue. And I think 50 years after Stonewall, we are still confronting this reality that like a lot of our history is being repackaged to us and sold to us through these more liberal, less radical, and very like watered down and very whitewashed kind of means. And we're told that like these are the movies that you need to see to understand the queer community. And these movies are straight actors playing gay roles, and they're written by straight people.
But sometimes, I'm gonna out myself here, as a gay elder.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have met young people who have no idea what Stonewall is. And I'm like, how do you not know what Stonewall is? That is the single most event that started our gay revolution.
Totally.
Our liberation.
I know my experience. I didn't find out about Stonewall until I was in college. And that's only because I was part of a queer education and support group on the university that was actually dedicated to educating us. But that's few and far between. Right. Especially with a lot of universities kind of like defanging those organizations. Right. But yeah, I mean, we're not educated on our history.
But as a person that has been around, I'm gonna call myself seasoned because I like that word. Seasoned.
She's a little spicy.
I'm a little spicy too. So yeah, as a seasoned queer,
yeah,
how do I pass that knowledge on to you? Is it my stories? Is it a class? Is it just grabbing you and sitting you down and tying you to a chair and making you listen to, this is where we came from. We did not have the ability to take our boyfriends or girlfriends to prom.
Exactly.
We didn't have the luxury of wearing pride flags or trans flags or wearing clothes like that.
Yeah.
How do we instill in our younger generation, how do we pass this history and knowledge on? Because we all know there is a gap.
Totally.
Because the AIDS crisis took out an entire generation of people. So how do we do? Is that through intergenerational events? Is that through the older LGBT seniors telling their story? Yeah. How do we get that? I know we've captured a lot of stories through the History Project with Steve Brawley. Yeah. So how do we play those so that our young kids understand this is where we have come from?
But who shows up to those sorts of events, right? Like, really?
Yeah, I know. But how?
So thinking about it outside of the box, like what is appealing to the younger generation of humans that we're engaging, that are coming up, that are going to be taking the torch, that are having the torch right now? I mean, what we have to think in that vein.
I know when I was growing up, I would just sit and listen to people talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love a storytell, but I also think that a lot of humans at this point get a lot of their information in their hand or on this screen.
Yeah, I know a lot of, and this is a thing that I think that often is like a knock of our younger generations, but I think it actually is a boon for them, is that they are so connected on social media and through the internet. And they do get information disseminated to them, but it's who is writing that information kind of a thing that's always a concern. But I think sometimes a lot of younger people know more than generations past of young queers coming into the scene. And I think that is definitely from social media and being able to interact in those kind of ways. But I think that, like you don't often know your local history, which I think is incredibly important. And part of the reason why we don't know our local history is the people that would naturally be passing that history down are gone.
Right.
Like the AIDS crisis carved out a huge gap. It's an entire lost generation within our communities. And that generation would have provided the glue to kind of hold these desperate like groups a little bit closer together and kind of keep our communities a lot stronger than what they've become. And I think that because of that lost generation, we are more prone to having our history sold back to us and having our history reimagined in different ways that aren't exactly accurate. And we have a shorter memory of things. Like I think a lot of younger queers that I meet are currently starting to experience some of that fear of like government oppression and targeting and all of those kind of things.
Look at what's happening right now with transgender folks. Like,
yeah, exactly. But you take those life lessons from the elder people in our community and see how we got through those things.
Yeah.
We had oppression. We had riots. We weren't listened to. Getting back to the AIDS crisis, we weren't listened to. We took to the streets. We did act up.
Yeah.
We chained ourselves to things.
and so maybe it's time to go back into that
Maybe it's
space,
time to
right?
go.
I mean, our dear friend Elizabeth she speaks to me a lot about agitation and the importance in our movement and how it's not necessarily happening right now, and we are under attack.
Yes, we are definitely under attack. And
Like we are under attack.
we are under attack
Yes.
as intersex and GNC
Yes.
and trans people.
Yes.
Our whole family is under attack. Because I wrote a Facebook post this morning because I read yet again about how they want to take, I don't know what division of the Trump administration it was, but they're again rolling back health benefits for trans people. And I was like, every day it seems like there's something that they're trying to take away from our community. And until we, as a community, stand up and say, I can't take it anymore. What was that line from Network?
I have no idea.
Oh, of course you do.
Network?
Network is the movie with Faye Dunaway. And
No, I don't know this either.
Sorry. Am I showing my age again? Jesus. Oh, it's I'm mad and I'm not gonna take it anymore.
That's right.
So at what is our boiling point where we start our own Stonewall? Where we say, look, people, I'm tired of you trying to erase me.
Right.
So I'm gonna take this brick and I'm gonna throw it through the White House window. I'm gonna do something so that you all pay attention. But we as a community have to stand up and start fighting for ourselves. And we have to bring our cis siblings with us. Because I personally was there when I Don't Ask, Don't Tell, through marriage equality. We were there fighting. I was there fighting with you. So now it's time to you reciprocate and fight for me, because erasure of trans and intersex rights are happening, people.
I am all for that. I am down for the revolution. I'm down for so much of it. But like my trust in the little white twinks that pop around and the old white queens that are popping around, they just aren't there for us. They got theirs and they're comfy. Like you look at somebody like what's his name? Mayor Pete Buttigieg. He's not here for us, and he's not going to be. And he's like the gay presidential whatever, one of the 48 run-in or whatever. But I mean, like there is that kind of desperate or that disconnect in our communities of the people who got theirs are kind of done on us. And maybe like this little shakeup and everything is going to push them to actually like come for us, but they historically that's just never been.
But
the case.
maybe I'm just playing devil's advocate. Totally. Maybe sometimes when they approach us, we have bitten their heads off. Because I know
we're hurting.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
We have done that, because I've talked to my cisgender friends and say, why are you stepping up? And they say, number one, we don't know what to say. We don't want to say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, or overstep our boundaries. Because when we do that, our heads have been bitten
That
off.
fragile nature is getting us killed.
Yes, but sometimes we have to say, just like I'm a strong individual. When I need help, I don't say I need help because I think I can do it on my own.
Sure.
But if we reach out and say, look, y'all, if they come for us, they're eventually going to come for you.
Yeah.
And I fight with my little children that are Trump supporters that are gay. I'm like, look, y'all keep saying he's wonderful, but if he picks on this part of our community, it won't be long before he picks on
That's right.
on the gay boys too.
Yep.
So
let me bring it back to Pride a little. So how can manifesting Pride this year be different, right? I'll speak for the Metro Trans Umbrella Group, and the Pride St. Louis really being very intentional about centering trans, expansive, and GNC folks this year in the parade. And it is both and for sure. I am the baby queer in me is so excited, and I know that humans will come at me for certainly that day and months and weeks later saying, seeing so many trans expansive humans taking up space in that parade saved my life, changed the trajectory. I get it. And then I know that also some of my siblings are going to be like, you hurt me by marching in that parade. So it's like both and, because we're at this intense place in our movement. And so I'm going to bring it back to how we're claiming space as a trans expansive community specifically. I don't know if you all heard, but we're partnering with the ACLU the Friday before Pride Weekend, the 28th. We're starting over at the funeral home, because we're dying.
Yes.
And we're going to march down into the park. And there's no corporate, there's no Bud Light Rainbow bottles. It's just community and us. So kind of the both and. I don't know. How do you all as trans expansive humans, intersex human, balance it?
Well, I'm all about big or go home.
I hear you.
And so I was planning a march too.
Yeah.
We're going to march from, just like we did the Women's March, all the way from Union Station, down Market, and end up on the steps of the library. Well, I was told that people that would be too connected to Pride St. Louis.
I mean, and that could be argued for sure.
And that I said, okay, I get it. I understand
That's not our neighborhood.
That's not, but what is our neighborhood?
I mean, I would argue or say that the St. Louis community suburbs, Benton Park West, Tower Grove, these are our neighborhoods.
Okay.
Not to say that we don't live downtown, but that's a lot of commerce in that particular area.
Okay, but my thing is all about visibility.
Absolutely.
So we're marching down Arsenal to, it's going to come out so negative, but I'm just going to say it. Marching down Arsenal and marching down Market are two different things to me.
Yeah.
Arsenal is safe, Market is not. To me, if I'm going to be visible, I don't want you to see me, I'm going to go where you're going to see me. And Market and all that is visibility to me. I may be wrong, hate me because I'm wrong, but that's how I see things.
Yeah. I will push back just a little bit on that, because I do think that there is a political importance of targeting the people where people live, and being present within these neighborhoods and being present where it's unexpected. Because I think a lot of the times when we do focus on a lot of activism downtown, that makes it easier for it to not be as disruptive. And we can plan around downtown protests very easily because they're always there. The cops are trained, they know how to do it. But when we shake things up, when we go to streets that are less normal for them to block off, I think that disruption is felt more deeply. And I think that when it's done where people live, then it becomes a lot more real. Yeah. And it becomes a lot more human.
We are living next to you. Yeah.
I think there is a lot more of a blood-filled kind of like human interaction with that kind of action in a lot of ways. And that's one reason why I think targeting the places where other people are comfortable with our discomfort and being able to take them out of that is important, but also being able to target the places where we feel comfortable and celebrate, I think, is also incredibly important.
And I'll be there and 100% support. Yeah, I'll come.
Marching right with
I'll be marching. This is what I will leave, because Friday is set up for Pride St. Louis. So I will leave, march, because I've been in charge of getting volunteers to the march and blocking the streets with no policemen. So Jay, Marie, and I have a plan for that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave early from the Pride downtown, Pride that everyone hates, and comes over.
Look,
I know,
complicated, right?
It's a nuanced.
You're talking about something complicated.
Could I ask what the original question was? Because there was something that I wanted to say about the original question real quick, and I'm
It's about how we went from a riot to.
Oh no, there was like what we should do in this or something like that, or like how we can get Pride back. I don't know. Can someone play back the tape or something?
Right.
But how do we get back to that original fundamental what Pride, grassroots of what Pride is to
Oh,
be?
okay.
Yeah.
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 So
Oh,
that's right. That was kind of what the question was. How do we get back to the grassroots of Pride? Like I started out with.
Well, I think a lot of the ways to return to the grassroots is to re-acknowledge like who was the grassroots and who was doing it and what it was originally for. It wasn't the original like Stonewall shooting off and the different actions that shot off and kind of a thing. They weren't intentional about wanting to build like a global and an international movement right off the bat. It was about a specific community being resilient against the things that were pressuring them. Yeah. And so, sorry, I'm gonna have to take a drink of coffee because I got dry mouth.
And let me put this in there. It's also the 40th anniversary of Pride.
Yeah.
So we have
Pride St. Louis.
Pride St. Louis. Okay. Yes, of Pride St. Louis. And we listen to. Well, I listen to everything that people say, and I have my own take on how we get back to the fundamentality of Pride. Go ahead and finish what you said.
Yeah. So I think if we restructure and we start to re-acknowledge that we as a community are trying to build resilience and build resistance to these kind of things that are happening in our local areas, that will take us back to a lot of the things that Stonewall was about and that ACT UP was about, that it was specifically supporting a specific community without intention of building anything outside of that and just trying to build strength to the things that are attacking us.
We were trying to get answers. We were trying to get answers and solutions because when ACT UP, because I was part of ACT UP St. Louis, we acted up because we wanted results, because no one was listening to us.
Exactly.
Because the president, Reagan, wasn't even mentioning the word AIDS. Right. Not until Rock Hudson died did the words AIDS ever come out of the White House.
Exactly.
So how we have to start taking to the streets again. We have to start marching. We have to start making people uncomfortable and listen to us about trans and intersex and GNC people will not be erased. And getting back to the fundamental grassroots of Pride, I agree with everything people say. You know, how did we go from saying on a budget of Pride of $5, you know, to $500,000? How did we get there? And how do we go back? So my idea is just no national acts, all community acts. We let nonprofits in for free because those nonprofits are actually doing the work to help provide the resources to help the people in our community.
I'll push back a little bit though, because there are some nonprofits that aren't doing that work. I remember certain churches that were present at Pride, and I talked to some of these churches, and I asked them point blank, I was like, what are you doing for our communities? And they listed off like all the activism or whatever kind of support they were doing within their religious context. And they said that they were, it was a Methodist church. And so those of you who know about the Methodist vote and everything, like, congratulations. It wasn't good. But they said that they were like being very intentional within the Methodist church of trying to advocate for gay marriage and gay clergy within the Methodist church. But I'm not Methodist anymore. Like, I'm not a part of that church. I don't go. Like, how does that help me? I have no intention of getting married in a Methodist church. Sure. How does that help like my sisters who are doing survival sex work and who have been hurt by SESTA and FOSTA, which are two like policies that we're not fully acknowledging the way that they impact our community specifically. I got into a fight with some old straight white guy the other day because I criticized Mayor Pete Buttigieg, because I love criticizing that twink. And he was saying something about like, oh, well, you got DOMA, like you're set. And I was like, that's not, like, literally it's not. It's like, what I'm concerned about isn't being able to fit into straight society. Like, marriage equality is great in certain aspects, but it fails to acknowledge like a lot of the other things that are going on in our communities, like queer disabled people still can't get married, because if your income goes over a certain number, then you can no longer take benefits.
Right.
And then that can throw you totally out of whack. And so I think that it's complicated because we don't have like that one rallying cry is easy, because it is so nuanced and it's so complex.
But our rallying cry now should be trans rights.
Yeah.
That should be, everything should be centered around trans rights.
But even then it's complicated, because what does trans rights mean to so many people? It means, oh, you're respected in your workplace. Oh, like
It's all
you
those
can
things,
you can
though.
get married, you can get your gender markers changed. But in a lot of ways, I think that just asking for rights and demanding our rights isn't enough. I think there is a massive need for like reparations and retribution and genuine power being exchanged. And I think that like a lot of the times, like the cries that I think that our allies think that we're asking for, I think that they minimize it. I think that a lot of times they just think that what we want is to be respected, and it's more than that. We want to be able to like have power.
Right. But it's not just basically just power. It's just my mere existence as a human being.
Totally.
My mere existence as if I want to go and I want to change my sex, I should be able to do that.
Completely.
The government should not be able to stop me from doing that. If I want to, that is my right as a human being.
But so much like what we're experiencing right now locally is trans expansive humans. Many of us aren't even getting our basic needs met.
Yes, totally. Right.
It's beyond that. It's beyond respect in the workplace and being able to assimilate into.
How do we just get up and live? How do we live? How do I feed myself? How do I clothe myself?
And I think-
how do I put shelter over my head?
I think a lot of that comes from just genuine power being brought into our communities. Like trans women of color are being murdered, especially black trans women of color are being murdered
We
on
had
the streets.
5 this week.
Yeah.
5 this week, right? 5. Because I think 4 or 5 this week. Mm-hmm.
But this is happening, and the liberal like ideas of respect and whatnot, that's not going to change that. That comes from just actually having power, getting people off the streets. It's a larger, but also it's a larger movement that we're all a part of to try to radically fix things and radically put things on a track for people to live a dignified life. And so trans rights include homelessness. Trans rights include anti-colonialism.
Right.
Trans rights, in my opinion, include anti-capitalism. And so I think that, like, yes, our movement needs to be more radical. It needs to be more localized, but it also needs to shoot for this, and I call it a middle ground, because I really do think that it's a middle ground that all people kind of can agree with on some level of their morality. But it's a radical middle ground that demands equal power and access to that power.
So let me ask you this, Amy. What is your definition of power? Let's start there. What is your definition of power?
Totally. So my definition of power is agency. The ability to pursue life without reliance upon another entity. So that includes people not being completely reliant on their jobs for healthcare, being able to have the agency to get the procedures that they need or want done in a way that they can afford, being able to not be forced to work for a company because the alternative is starvation, being able to live in a building without giving a third of your paycheck to rent.
A third.
Yeah.
You mean 3/4. Come on now.
Yeah, you're right.
Have you seen the new developments popping
You're
up
right,
around
you're
town?
right. Those
That's a whole different. That's a whole different
Those little
episode.
boxy buildings, I hate them.
I'm going to ask you all yes or no questions. Okay. All right. I was going to give a meh, but I'm not going to do that. We're just going to say yes or no. Okay. And
pretty hard.
Can I just abstain? No comment. No comment.
this is not a
Oh, come on.
Okay.
No comment.
So, without explanation,
Okay.
because I know sometimes that's hard. Okay, so
Yeah.
first question's pretty easy.
All right.
Okay. Should the parade have naming rights by a corporation? Yes or no?
No.
No.
Impressive. Should we consume those rainbow Bud Light beverages with pride?
Yes.
Only if someone else is buying it for me.
So that's a yes?
No, that's a no.
Let's see. Should we go back to our roots and have a giant action in lieu of the MasterCard presents St. Louis Pride Parade?
I think my answer is pretty easy. I'm gonna say of course. Like
Yes.
Okay. Let me think of another good yes or no question.
Now I'll probably be kicked off the board tomorrow.
No, I think, okay, so do you feel proud?
Yes. Almost definitely. Oh, yes. Of myself, yes. Yes.
yeah.
All right. Do you feel kindred to LGBTQIA St. Louis community? Do you feel part of it?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so we lightened it up a little. Let's talk about, Amy had brought it up earlier, about the lost generation, right? What is the language that you were using about that?
So this is a thing that I've been wanting to focus on for a while because it was something I experienced when I first came out, and I started interacting with older people in the community and people from a vast array of generations within the community, is that within like a queer community, we have a lot of trauma, and we also have a lot of chosen family. And what's complicated with that kind of chosen family and that kind of community is that you don't always know that trauma, and you don't know where it comes from. And for a lot of young people who don't know their history, they might not fully understand the trauma of the AIDS crisis and just how burying so many of your friends can affect you. And so when you're young and you're coming up in this community, you kind of like start to experience some weird things. And this is mostly from my experience, but I have a few friends who've had similar ones. The first is this fetishization of youth. And I think that we as a society, as an American society, have that horribly. I think that we have a horrible association with like youth equals everything. Like, you stop living after 21. College is the best years of your life. High school was amazing. I met my sweetheart, kind of a thing. Women after the age of 30 might as well just be grandmothers. Like, we live in a society that's really bad with youth, but the queer community doesn't.
It's even worse with youth.
It is.
It is even worse with youth.
It can be really bad. And I think a lot of that comes from, one, lost years. We feel like the years that we weren't out sooner are lost, and we feel like we have to reclaim these kind of like teenage dreams of ours, kind of a thing. Especially for trans people, I think it's extra hard when we look back at decades that we feel like we weren't able to live our authentic selves. I know that's one thing that I struggle with, and I'm still a young fucker, but like, that was the thing that when I first came out into the community, like, I did experience that kind of like fascination and this desire to control my youth and wanting to shape me into the like trans woman that other people wish they could have been at certain times. And it was very controlling and very manipulative. But also sometimes that trauma comes out in ways where older queer people are, I hate to use the word grooming, and because I think that there is like a really bad political relationship with that word, but I mean, it does exist within our communities. And I think what a lot of it comes down to is that generational trauma that we don't always address. And then there's also the other side of just older queer people who have nothing and want nothing to do with younger folks because they think we're all just young, dumb, and full of cum, and they don't.
Y'all are hard-headed and don't listen.
Yeah, well, that's true. I'm pretty stubborn. But no.
But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's that myself, I can relate on this on two different levels. Totally. First of all, living through the AIDS crisis, and being 55 and just transitioning.
Yeah.
You know, people go, first of all, people go, why are you 60 and single? I said, because all the men my age are dead.
Yeah.
They go, what are you talking about? I'm like, because the AIDS crisis wiped out anybody in my age range, almost anybody in my age range that I would date.
Totally.
They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, okay, let me start whipping out the statistics on you. And they people don't have any idea. People don't know.
No.
And I say people don't know because we beautify everything. Like I say younger people like I'm an old fart. But the youth of today think, oh, somebody said this to me one day. Oh, if I get HIV, I'll just take a pill.
Exactly.
Honey, it's not just one pill. There's a pill for that, then the side effects, and the pill for the side effects. And I have friends that take 26 different pills a day. Like during the AIDS crisis, they don't see the lesions and the sickness and dancing with somebody on Saturday and the next Friday you're burying them.
Exactly.
You know, that's the kind of thing you didn't have. When I first came out in St. Louis in 83, when I first moved here in 83, there were 15 of us. There are now 2 of us.
Yeah.
You know, because the AIDS wiped out all my friends.
Totally.
So if you don't see that, if I remember one day we were all standing around after we buried yet another person, and we said, if we have to put on these black goddamn clothes one more week, we are going to scream.
Yeah.
It was every week, you know?
Yeah.
And there was nothing being done, so that's what ACT UP started. But that's what happened to that generation. AIDS wiped out that generation, which in turn wiped out the passing down of the history of our community.
And the glue that would hold a lot of our community together. I mean, we go to the gay bars and the young pups are there and the baby gays are there and the old folks are up at the bar all talking to the bartender, talking shit. And I mean, that generation would have been there to kind of connect everyone, but they're not.
They're not, and that's a sad fact.
Completely.
But how do we jump the hurdle for the generational gap?
I think. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. No,
Hold on. How does it relate to Pride?
How does it relate to Pride? So at Pride, we need to get these two groups together.
It's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity to get these groups together. So if we do this at Pride, and I'm thinking of trying to get some kind of intergenerational event together during the week before Pride to see what we do. But it's hard to get my crotchety old siblings and my younger hard-headed siblings to the same place because, you know, as we all have older people in our family, we go, God, we got to listen to Aunt Lorraine's story one more time. But those stories are important.
Yeah, completely.
Because they give you a focus of where we have been and what it took to get here. And I tell people that when I was about 12, my cousin said to me, you know what? I told your mother on her deathbed, I'd tie you to a tree and beat the sissy out of you if you ever were a sissy.
Yowzer.
Yeah, you know, stuff like that we need to pass on. So, like I said before, we didn't have the luxuries and normalities of being gay and open because we had to suppress it. Just like when older people transition, they did because they went and got married, got a corporate job, had kids, and went to college, had a house. Grandma lived through the white picket fence, 2.5 dogs. So now it churned up out of them, and now they want to transition. So what resources are out there for the older people to transition? That's why we have and those stories are important too. I lost my train of thought here, but those stories are important too that we tell. That's why people ask me, why did you wait till 58 to transition? Because I just found me.
Yeah.
Lord knows I had to go from a gay man to an intersex individual to a trans woman to find out who I really was. And had I seen those people at Pride, I would have possibility models. I would have come out. So as the director of diversity included, it's going to be my supreme job is to make everyone feel comfortable. There's going to be a lot of different things as far as Pride this year to be more welcoming and more inclusion, because that's what I want. I want people to come and feel included.
I have one suggestion about Pride, and it was I always make it a very intentional move to go and look at the AIDS quilt. I think the AIDS quilt is one of the most phenomenal pieces of folk art the world has ever seen. And I always hate to see it so tucked away. And I think that for a lot of like younger generation people, confronting it is one thing.
Put it front and center.
Yeah.
Put it in your face.
And I think that people kind of meander their way over to the stages and whatnot, and go and get their drinks and go to the little food stands. But seeing the AIDS quilt and seeing those stories and seeing people that look like you at your age kind of reflected back on you and cut down in like the prime of their lives, like I think that's really important. And I would like to see that kind of work kind of brought more front and center at Downtown Pride, because I think that it could serve as the glue in a lot of ways.
Because I had a lot of friends that didn't make it past 25 and 30.
And I know, and this is probably like the last thing we're going to have time to say or anything like this, but one other generational trauma thing that I think a lot of younger trans women deal with, and I don't know if that we often acknowledge it, is I have not met many people who are out at my age. And the times that I have heard stories of people who were out at my age, they didn't last long. They were around for a bit, and then something happened, and it is never like very specific. It's always just, they disappeared one day.
Yeah. I can think of 4 or 5 individuals.
To the closet.
Right.
Okay, I'm gonna end it with one question. Okay. Tell me one precious Pride moment that you've had in your life of attending Prides.
Getting ready to march in the parade and looking down and seeing all the queer people lined up.
Which parade?
The parade downtown.
The first one?
No, it was just last year.
Okay.
When we moved in, and I turned around and I saw, because
Under the arch.
the rainbow flag and all the gay people. It made me cry, because I thought, okay, we're here. We're being seen.
Yeah.
We're, that was if you turned around and you looked down Market and you saw.
That was your precious.
That was the thing that made me say, this is Pride.
You have one?
Yeah, I do. I guess it was last year for Pride. I was working at Mokabee's in the kitchen, and it was right across the street from Tower Grove Pride. And so the entire time, it just felt like more and more people coming through, and I was just serving them food. And my love language is serving food.
Mine too.
Yeah, it's when I cook for people, like it means something really deep for me. But it was that constant flow and just how many people were there, and seeing a lot of familiar faces, and really feeling a part of this community because I was serving it. And then just like my partner at the time, seeing them at the end of the day and just being able to take them home. It was a really precious moment for me.
That's awesome. Pride's full of all those things, both and, the things that make us struggle and the things that lift us up and make us feel connected to community. So you all, that's it for us today. If you like this show, be sure to subscribe on your podcasting app and follow the Metro Trans Umbrella Group on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those social media things. Comment below. Did it just, yep. Yeah, comment below. Send us a message at stlmetrotrans.org. If you want to bring up something, you have a topic, you want to be a guest, trans expansive GNC folks only, please. And we will see you next time. Thanks, y'all.
Bye.